Okay, perfect. Thank you everyone that's joined us this evening already. Tonight we've got Marcel with us. He's going to be giving us his introduction to setting up your continuous testing pipeline within 60 minutes. So he's going to get very technical. There's not going to be any slides. It's just going to be all demonstration, and there'll be an opportunity at the end for questions. As a few of you have seen, we're using the Slido app as well. So if you've got any questions throughout, just feel free to put your questions in there and we can get around to getting those answered throughout the call as well this evening. And also he's got a poll on there if you can answer those, just to gauge the audience and see where we come from as well. So yeah, over to you, Marcel, and speak to you all soon.
Cool, thank you. Thank you, Ashley, for having me here. Hello, everybody. I will just start in a few seconds. So I keep the poll running for a few more seconds while I will try to introduce myself. Maybe some of you attend my previous talk where I used a lot of slides and a lot of kind of high-level view on automation. And actually, this is the second talk on QA London meetup, where I decided to, instead of bring a lot of slides, focus more on a technical topics, which is the topic I agreed with Ashley to present today. Is continuous testing in 60 minutes. It will actually demo using free tools to show you some principles and explain what does the continuous testing means. Before that, let me just maybe share with you some details about me. My name is Marcel Veselka. I live in Prague in Czech Republic. And I'm working in different testing roles since 2004, so it's pretty long already. Apart from that, I'm a big fan of running and hiking in nature. I'm living here with my family of two daughters and my wife. But let's now focus on the topic itself. I could see that there is a lot of guys from testing and some developers in test automation and also some managers. What I'll do, I'll try to explain the topic first and then show you the details based on the tools I chose, which are completely free, or sometimes open source tools or just free tools. And I think it's a good starting position if you are interested in a topic to play with these tools, because a lot of principles and patterns then just keep repeating in other tools. But in order to make it in 60 minutes, within my preparation, I did some homework and prepare some snippets and create the accounts on some cloud services and so on to be able to make it. I also prepare some scenario or some script, which I will follow. So I'll now start. So for the first thing I decided to prepare is account on GitLab. So account on GitLab, then I'll be using Sonar Cloud, and then I'll be using PyCharm. So these are basically three tools which should be enough. Maybe I will use some more where I need to install or download something. Okay, of course, but also Postman is part of that exercise. But before that, we will jump into the tools. I will first explain what the continuous testing means. And for me, when I saw it first time, I thought this is some marketing bullshit. somebody is trying to convince me that continuous testing is something cool we should all focus on. And it's over the marketing to sell me some tools, some new tools. But then I find out and recognize within our customers and our project that this is some kind of opportunity. And the opportunity is to shift or develop test automation even further and try to automate almost everything. And it's not easy to do so, but the tools now which are popping up, helping us to make it much easier. And then I decide to take all these ideas, all the experience from the project, try to anonymize and build it up in a way that you could see it in 60 minutes, how to set it up, what are the principles, and some examples of application. So I decided to take GitLab. GitLab is one of the leaders on the market, providing continuous integration and continuous deployment tool, where you could do a lot of stuff I will explain soon. They are also famous, and I'm pretty excited about their story of remote work. They have more than 1,000 employees across the globe, completely working remotely. But this is not why I chose the tool. I found it very easy to start using, and there was already some implementation we already had on customer side. So I will use the GitLab and create our completely new project. And I'll start from template to speed it up. And I will use template which basically builds just simple plain HTML page. We need to have some name for that. So let's call it QAL, like QA London. And I'll make it public. Now the project will be created, and you might already access the project via this link. Maybe I will place it into comments, if I could comment here. Maybe I'll chat, yeah. So this is the project I will work now with. And this basically creates some Git repository with first files, which we will modify. Apart from the files, you might find a lot of other functionality here on the left sidebar, but I don't want to promote or present how the tool works. I'm now focused on continuous testing approach and trying to build it up here. So I'll explain only the things which are relevant for us. And first thing which is relevant for us is this public folder. And within the public folder, I have simple web page. This simple web page has just this kind of HTML. And I could easily even modify it here, but I'll try to do it in different way. And there is also some styling for that page. And then I have one more file which is relevant for us, which is GitLab CI YAML file, which basically defines the pipeline. And this pipeline by default contains only the deployment of the web page to make it accessible for our customers or for the users who would be interested of that page. I'll explain this pipeline definition file later, but let's now try to see how the pipeline might look like. And I will run our first pipeline here manually. But before that, let me do one thing. Once we will publish the page, it should look like this. And it's on address, my username. And then instead of this plain HTML, there should be QA London. So on this page, if I didn't make a mistake, there should be the page published, but it's not there. So first, what I will do, I will just run the pipeline to deploy my application, which is basically nothing else than a simple web page. Now the pipeline is running and I'm deploying. So once this will finish, this circle will become green. I could see it also here. The same cycle is the same circle is here, and the pipeline is running. So once it's finished, it turns into this green icon, and if I'll go here, I should have my page deployed. There is something wrong. What's wrong? It looks everything works okay. There. I don't like the result. There should be some typo. Yeah, it's there. I had some typo. I don't want to find. I don't know, or there was some delay with publishing, but now it's there. And now this will be my application I'll test. So I will extend the pipeline. So instead of just deploying what's over there, I'll try to set up some pipeline to test it. And for that, I'll use the Git project and I'll clone it locally. Let me go to the. For that, I'll use this HTTPS link. Just copy that, and I'll use my IDE, which is now PyCharm. You might use any other IDE. You might have a Visual Studio or IntelliJ or WebStorm or whatever, Eclipse. I'll just clone the repository, and it'll come here. And you might see that all the files are visible on my IDE. And as I said, I'd like to test this app, but it's too simple. I would like to have some form there. So I will extend the HTML file by having more functionality and have some form. And for that, I prepared some snippet code. So instead of writing and delaying the explanation by preparing the code, I will just copy paste some code here, which is nothing else than a simple form for login, and then some piece of JavaScript. And then once the user is logged in, I will say hello, and then welcome, and then the name of the user. Now, when I open it locally, if it's here with all the form, what's the logic of the form is that these fields are required. So this is my first kind of test, and it accepts only address from Tesena, which is a company I'm working for, but it allows you to log in only with my email address and any password. Once I'm logged in, it just says welcome, my email, then I can log out. That's it. It's local, as I said. And now I'll try to open it on the page I was showing you globally, publicly. And you might see that it's still not there. In order to get it there, we need to push the code back to the repository, which you might know from any other project where you work with Git. And now I will push it. My first cool app. I'll commit and push it back to the repo. And now when I'll go back to my project on GitLab, I'll notice that my first cool app, this push is already there, and my pipeline starts automatically to run the deployment based on the file, this YAML file. So if I'll go there, I might even monitor what's going on there, but it's already finished, but the results or the log might be seen here. And my page should be already updated, so I'll refresh the page, and it's there. And we still didn't touch the idea of continuous testing, but I try to explain at least how the pipeline works. And this is the pipeline we will use to extend with some tests. To complete the explanation, within each pipeline, I could have several jobs and several stages. For this particular example, there is only deployment stage, and there are 2 jobs which are executed by default, or these are generated and provided by template. But I would like to extend that by some more activities. And for that, I'll use the definition YAML file, where I'll just copy paste this one and explain what this YAML file do. So this is deployment. For each such a file, I could define some stages. The stages by default are build, oops, typo here, then there is a test, and then there is deploy. But maybe I don't want to have this by default stages. Anyhow, I'm using this deployment stage here. So I would say maybe the first stage would be deployment, because we will first deploy and then test. Then I might have some QA or code QA, and then I have test, and then I might have a performance testing. And for these 4 stages, I'll do it in a very simple way, that I'll keep only this. And for deploy, I will keep the deployment alone. Then code QA will be the second stage I'll define here. And I would say Sonar check, which is static code analysis I will implement later, but this job will just check my code whether everything is okay. Then let me copy it here, and maybe on this code QA, I would like to have also some smoke test implemented. And then let's continue with the other jobs and stages. So the next stage would be test. And for that stage, I would say fun testing, which means now just fun test, which is functional testing. And then I would have API testing on the same stage. And for perf testing, I would use PT backend test. It's, what was the perf test? Perf test, maybe to make it more consistent, let's call it PT test. And then I might have the same, on that same stage, also front end or client side testing. And I need to change the name of this to PT. So now I just build up or prepare some skeleton, which covers all my levels, all my test types and test level I would like to have within the pipeline. You might notice that there is nothing which is done by the jobs. It's just echo, nothing to do. But even though I would like to show you how it works, because once I push this, the pipeline will be triggered by code change, even it's only the definition of the pipeline. So I will push there with some new comment, ready for continuous testing. So now I'll commit and push back to the repo. You might notice that I'm not following the good practice of working with Git repository within the team, and a bigger scale, you wouldn't push it directly into the master, but now I'm doing it. If you don't understand what I'm trying to say, it's not important and relevant to my talk, so just ignore my comment. Now, this is how I defined it, maybe a bit by accident, but I made 2 jobs on each stage, which maybe it's strange, but you might see that once the job's finished on one stage, the other stage is just executed, and once this is finished, then it continues for the next stage. In practice, you would have probably several environments between the stages where you would deploy. And the end, you would have the production where you would deploy. This is, I would say, ultimate goal and the ideal scenario, that you're deploying directly into production without human touch. Sometimes we do this just for 2 or 3 levels of environment, and then there is anyhow exploratory testing when you deploy to the production. And in some cases, customers are able to use and follow the canary approach, or some kind of scaled deployment when you decide to deploy only on a really small amount of customers, see what is the feedback, and if everything is going well, then they just slowly scaling and scaling up and adding more and more users onto the new version. But this is basically the principle how the pipelines works. If you would use some other tool like GitHub, it would be very similar. There is also a YAML file, there are some definitions. They don't call it pipelines, they call it actions. So the terminology might be a bit different, but that's basically it. Maybe to explain how these jobs and everything works, if I click on that, each that job is running its own container, and GitLab call is runner. So I have a specific runner for each job, which is created for my execution. For this one, it's built on Alpine Linux. You might, of course, change it, and I'll show it soon how to change it and how to manipulate this container to work for you and do some testing. And we don't have enough time to implement all the jobs. So what I'll do now, I'll first explain how to build up the Sonar checks, and then probably I will do API and functional testing. For those guys who are interested on the other topics, I'll be running a few workshops in November. I think on some conferences I could share if you would be interested. Some are already confirmed, some are under discussion, where I will go deeper, but it'll be for half day. So we will play with the tool, and it'll be a bit hands-on, so you can also follow me step by step and try it by yourself. But anyhow, let's now focus on this Sonar Cube. Maybe you might don't know what is the Sonar Cube, but this is the simplest way you could test the quality of your code. It's nothing else than scanner, which scans your code and checking some patterns which shouldn't be or which should be followed to produce a good code. So no duplicates, following some standards, being compliant with some guidelines and so on. So to do so, we need to integrate this Sonar Cloud, which is a Sonar Cube cloud solution. And for a public project, it's free. So it's good to start with, because then you can learn and play with that by yourself if you wanna find out how it's work. And then I will choose my account, which is my private account, and this is the project which I could set up. Now we will quickly set it up. So I would like to analyze my code on GitLab. And now it's simple wizard I need to follow. First one, I need to configure my secrets. Usually when you are building up this kind of pipelines and jobs, you don't want to put all your passwords and keys into your code. So there is a specific place on GitLab where you put the secrets or any other variables. And if you go back into the Sonar, it's CI/CD variables. So this is the place where I put my variables, just by clicking here. And now it will be very simple copy paste exercise, but I'll need to make it maybe like this one. It will be simple copy paste exercise. I'll just copy this key. Should I do it this way? It's easier. Key here, then token here, then variable blah 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 mask add, and now it's here added and it's masked, so it should be protected to being visible. Then I have a URL, which is another variable, so key value. I do not need to protect that, so I'll just edit, and you might notice that okay, it's not visible here, but you can then, if it's marked as masked, it shouldn't be propagated into your logs. Now I'll just continue. Now I need to adjust my pipeline definition, and I would say there is no any specific technology listed here, so I'll use other. Now I should copy this, and I usually do it in a way that I'm okay. I can copy it like this. I'm opening my GitLab CI definition, and I would like to modify this job. I could just simply replace it, but I always do it in this way. I want to keep my name, so it will be Sonar Check instead of Sonar Cloud Check. I would like to keep this stage, so I don't know whether it's stage by default. It's not defined, so I would like to have the stage defined, and this job might be removed because it's already defined. Then I'm using this section of variables always on the top, because I will keep adding and maintaining it here and reusing it later. Now I need to go back to the wizard, and the next one is I need to create this file. I'll do it like this. File. This is a name. It should be .no. But there is. I'm adding it to the Git, so we will push it into repo. I just simply copy pasting what's here. It's automatically generated for me, and that should be it. Now I'll just push it to the Sonar implement. I'm pushing it into project on GitLab. And once I'm back there, let me find it quickly. Where is it? Here. If it's there, now my pipeline starts again because there are some changes on the project. Of course, deployment again. Then there will be smoke and sonar. Actually, the sonar might take a bit longer because now it does something. It's not just empty print out the echo, but it's trying to analyze the code in my repo and giving me some results. And now if I would go, I keep it running. It's not important because there is nothing else there. But once this will finish, the Sonar Cube, like you could see the execution here. I will explain some details. And details, this is the property file. It's not maybe so important and interesting, but what we add here is that for that job sonar check, we attach container, Docker container from from Docker Hub, provided by the organization providing the Sonar Cloud. And we just pass to the container some parameters and some definitions later. This is the script we are passing, and then some other details and configurations. And that's basically it. Similar principles will be used later. I'll explain soon. Now, going back here, you might see that the container is now actually running and trying to do something. I don't want to go into details because the purpose of that explanation or my talk is not to show you how the sonar works, but there is some scanner, there is some tool which scans your code. And once this will finish, which actually is now, we could go into the Sonar Cloud. I need to find a window, yeah, here. And under the Sonar Cloud, the project QAL already finished. And I already found first bug in my app, which is already categorized, but just see bug on this file. So I might see where is the bug. It's here. And according to the standards, this HTML should have defined the language. So there is already some suggestion. You might then link it with your bug system or work with it or comment or assign it to fix somebody and so on. I'll show you something, some maybe more interesting bug, which is sometimes done by junior developers. And this is copy pasting. And you might know that copy pasting in development might cause that it increase the maintainability efforts, and it's also increased the efforts you spend on bug fixing. So if you have the same code several times in your within your app, and you are not properly structured the code, then the fixing the bugs and extending the code by new features might become hell. So I will do the really basic mistake. I'll just copy paste this one. I'll make more index files, maybe 2. I'll add it to the record, and then I'll put there one more, which will be index 3. I believe nobody would do this kind of mistake, but I saw some situations when developers just copy paste the methods and not restructuring the code properly. And what I find out, I forgot to add the one thing. And now just believe me to speed it up. I don't explain that. I'm adding one REST API to my app. It's nothing else than simple HTML, which now will simulate the code like this. So if I would go into my app, the link/API, I would get this kind of response locally. So once this is my mock for API. So I'll be now able to test not only the form and login, but also API, which responds with some JSON. So that's it for the scanning. Now let me introduce some more maybe relevant stuff or interesting stuff, because usually I, as a tester, don't deal too much with scanning, but I do a lot of smoke testing, functional testing, API testing, performance testing, and all these kind of tests. So let's now skip the smoke, because this might be just sub-selection of the functional and API testing, but let's implement the functional and API testing. For that, I decide to use two tools. You might choose whatever tool you want. I just took this one. One for functional testing, I'll be using Robot Framework. So I will create a folder with my tests here, directory, and then tests. And I will place two folders there. One is for functional, and the other one is for the API. And for the API, I decided to use Newman, which is CLI tool for Postman. So I execute the Postman tests from command line. And now let's see what I need for that. First, maybe I will explain the simple one. This is the Robot Framework test where I open browser with specific URL on the specific within the specific browser, and then I just check whether there is hello world. That's it on my smoke. On login, I'm trying to log in with several combinations, and I just checking whether the expected result is coming, whether I could log in or not. There is only one case where I could log in, which is this one, and then this one, because password validation is not implemented. So these are my tests. Then I have a list of libraries I need to deploy. You do not need to understand this. This is just my setup of tests. So I'm closing it. And for the API testing, I have some collection where I need to request the proper endpoint, which won't be this one, but there will be QAL. And then it will be also here. And then I have the definition of my test. And my test does nothing else than checking the status response code is 200. And I have within my response this cool get REST API. That's it. This is actually nothing else than export from my test, and my test requesting this specific URL, which is defined here. I change it to the QAL, and then once I send the request, then there are two tests. One is a status code 200, and the other one is whether there is a response. Cool get test, and you might notice that it's failing, and it's obvious because when I would go there now on my endpoint, let me find a window here. I would put here just API. There is nothing yet. So there is no 200 response code because there is no web page, and there is no JSON to parse as a response. So what I need to do, I need to push my code back to the project. Otherwise, I won't be able to test it. But before that, let me also define the functional and API testing. And for that, I'll be using, again, some snippets already prepared. First, let me start with functional testing. For that, you might remember I was talking about some Docker containers, and in this case, sorry, this was not the right one. For the functional testing, I will use simple Python latest version of container, and I will deploy all my testing tools into that container. And to that container, I will attach another container, which is Selenium container, where I will send my test as a remote execution. And then basically that's it. And once I have it, I will save all my reports into the folder defined here. And as I already mentioned, this folder needs to be defined within my variables. I'll put it here, and I will define the variables, and it should be, I remember it right, it should be reports. Hope I didn't make too much mistakes. Report here. Report here. Okay, I have it defined here, so I do not need to define it on the top. You have two options. One might be on the top, or the other one within the job. But if you have something on the top, then you do not need to define it again. So let's keep it here. Sometimes it's good to have it on the top because then you can reuse it on various jobs. So now I should have everything ready. And as I mentioned, the container is attached with the Selenium grid, or it's basically Selenium grid. This helps us to overcome any problems with versioning of Selenium driver and browser version. And then I install the requirements from test functional, which is the folder where I put these requirements. So I install these two libraries, and then I execute my robot tests. And I'm passing some parameters. This one actually needs to be set, and I don't know whether I have it somewhere here. It's not here, so I need to set, and this might be useful to set it on the top, and the browser is also not set up. So I'll take these pieces and I'll set it here. So for the web, use the URL we are using, and for the browser, set it up this way. And for the web, this is URL. My link, which I want to test. So it's ready. Then if I would change the URL, it's easy to copy paste for any other app. You just need to modify your tests, and the pipelines might work. And actually, I find it very useful because now whenever I'm going somewhere else, it's easy to start by just taking what you already have and you are improving it. And now I would put here that I would like to run it on Chrome. Hope I have no too many typos. And now to make it maybe, I'll not play with, or I could play with that. I could put everything on a test stage, and this is not the way I would do, but now not delaying by waiting for Sonar Cube, I will just remove the code QA stage, and the last one is API testing. But I'll make a break now. Or no, we do not have enough time to make a break because we're running out of time. So let me add the API. We'll see whether it will work. I'll do it in a quick and dirty way. So I just put my snippets here, which takes Postman Newman container, then install some reporters I would like to have, and then execute the test, and then all the results are published into my artifacts. I'll explain soon. So now the pipeline is extended by adding the functional testing and also API testing. Now I am pushing it. So functional API testing, edit. What else I did? Probably that's it. So now I will push it into repo. Push. I'll close this one. I think we do not. Oh, okay. I'll show you that it start works now when I will resend the request. So one is deployed. It's here. Let me see that. So now I guess I'm deploying. So now it's already deployed. So my tests on Postman should start working. Now all the tests, all the checks are now working. So I'm getting 100 the code status, and body matches the cool get REST API. I could see it also in my response. This is the response I'm getting back. Apart from that, what I could show you while it's executing, that if I now go into this /API, it's there. So it's already published, so I can test it. Of course, it's not the proper REST API because the response type is not correct and so on. But for my experiments and for my explanation, it's good enough. Now you might notice that smokes already finished because it's not implemented yet, so it's basically nothing to do there. And API test already finished as well. So let me show you how the API looks within the pipeline. I took this Postman collection just by exporting that. It's this is the collection. So I click here and then I put export, and I've got the XML, the JSON file, which was uploaded into my project, and I let the Newman run that collection from the command line. And you might see it here that I executed the collection, and I asked the Newman to generate the HTML extra reports. And I asked then GitLab to publish the results. So my results are published within the artifacts of the job. So when I go to the browse, I can download it as well. But when I go here to the artifacts, I might find the HTML report. And this is the HTML report. You might see and analyze what it does. You might go into the request and see what's there, how it looks like, what was the response, and what was the tests, and how many pass and fail, and all these details are there. And apart from that, and this is simple, easy to implement tests, but let's see what else we could see there. So this is the API testing, and then there are functional testing which are based on the robot framework, and you might see already from the console that these tests all were passing. And now if you go to the reports, you can see the HTML report from robot framework. And if everything is implemented well, then my smoke test should fail when I change my app. So imagine that now the developers start heavily modifying the app. For instance, somebody would say, okay, we don't want to have a, maybe I will close all the things. We don't want to have a .com, but let's have the CZ. So there might say CZ here, but that's it. There might be some other issues as well. Or let's say, okay, I'll not modify here, but hello world, I will put here hi world. and maybe the API is also not very good. Let's call it good enough. Enough. And now, if everything is implemented well, and I'll push the code because now I'm acting as a new app. Now I'm acting as a developer, so I'm pushing new code. I'm pushing a new app. My test should already trigger some issues. And this is maybe not a good example. I could give you better if you would have more time, but I want to really keep the timing. But you might have something like this CZ I explained, and then there is a validation which might not be properly implemented because there is something else there. And many, you might imagine how many such a mistakes might be there. But I basically push the code. But me as a tester, I do not need to touch my tests if they are not impacted by these changes or modification. And I might see that it will start failing. We'll see. Maybe I'm missing some part of the definition of pipeline. We'll see whether it's. What should happen is that my performance testing will not start executing if my pipeline is defined properly, because it was blocked by this testing stage. So this stage is also protect your next stage, and it won't go into production until you will not fix it properly. And it might be fixing your tests or fixing your app, but this is how the staging works. It looks like pretty slow. Yeah, my API failed. So you might already see that these two jobs was canceled because of this failure. And it doesn't care what's going on here, because it's all about the failure on API level. And if you go into the API level and trying to check the artifacts, okay, I'm now finding out that I didn't save the artifacts, so I can't analyze the results. So I need to fix my pipeline. And this is, by default, there are no artifacts saved. So I need to tell to the GitLab that I want to have even the pipeline failing because of tests. I want to see the results, of course. When you build your app, you don't want to see the artifacts because it's failing. But for me, it's important. So I'll now need to push the new version of my pipeline very quickly and let it run. Okay, I'll push it. I should change this new app version, but I don't have a time. So now I'm pushing it back to re-execute the whole pipeline. And while it will be executed, I'll show you something else. If you remember, I was trying to create some problems with Sonar, and you might see my project is start failing even more. So if you go here, you see that there are some more bugs within the project, and you might see that I just duplicate the bug of that language issue, but it also says that my duplication rate is 72%. So I might need to fix this as well. It says that 51 lines of codes are duplicated, and there are many other things which are almost for free without any special effort gathered by the scanners nowadays. So it's worth to implement these things. There might be the security issues triggered or identified by this, and many other things. You might see how the bugs are also, what is the progress of the bug, and many other. I don't want to explain all the details, but you might see that these kind of issues might be identified even without writing any tests. But let's now move back to the API test. I hope now it will work, because I'm searching for, so the job failed, which is right, because the tests are failing. But my artifacts are stored here, so I could see what's wrong. If you go there, you see that some tests failed. So if I go there, one test failed, which is the one where I was trying to assert the event. It should include cool get REST API, but there is a good enough REST API. So this is my first error within the API, which might be intended, and I need to fix my tests, or it might be some bug which was introduced by developer. So this is, I'm not saying that this is a real scenario, but you can easily see that even without touching the tests, you already starting to identify the changes in app which might not be correct. So what else I could see here? Let me go back. Also modify the functional testing. So some failures could be seen here as well. No, I did, yeah, I did it. So you might see that all my tests failed because hello world is not there. I changed it to the hi world. So this is cool. Let me check the it's good enough, yeah. And if I go here, there is hi world instead of hello. So this is how to implement the pipelines. It helps you to quickly execute the code. So whenever you run the code, push new code, you might execute some tests. And of course, sometimes you are not willing to execute all these things. So for that, you might have some other features of GitLab I'm not focusing now on, like scheduling or executing specific job, or I could even do the thing that maybe there are some external facts like data change on database. So I might try to re-execute the specific job, which basically is trying to execute the job again and retesting even without touching the repository and the project. So that's basically it. This is how you could easily set up your pipeline. There are some specific tools you could use to set up performance testing or some other testing. You might even automate some usability testing. It's not the full usability testing automation, but there are some tools which might help you with this. And I just wanted to show you some examples how this could help you in long term to building up some machine which works for you and easily and very quickly checking the app. What you would face as a first stage of maturity is that you will find out that all this data is good to collect in some different tool. For our customers, we are integrating this with Atlassian, Jira, and TM4J, or we are pushing all the result into Elastic and then propagating or displaying the data via Kibana or Grafana, or there is interesting tool like Report Portal or Allure, which could be used to consolidate data and efficiently work with that. Because the continuous testing generates a lot of data which is useful then analyze and work with. So that's it from my side. I hope you find it a bit, at least a bit interesting. Maybe if you don't saw it in action and you already noticed that this topic is discussed, then maybe I help you to understand the basic principles. It's nothing else than trying to automate not only the tests itself, but also the execution and trying to make the whole process more efficient and quicker to get the code into the production or into the shape that it's ready for the production. So that's it. And maybe I'll check the Slido.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Marcel. Yeah, I think very insightful there and very in depth as well. So thanks for following up with this talk this week. If anyone on the call now, if you've got any questions, if you can go on to Slido and put them in there, or even in the chat function on Zoom now, whilst we've got it open, just Marcel can run through those. So if we leave it just for a minute or so, you can jump on there.
No questions. I can't see chat. There is no question from chat.
Okay, that doesn't seem like there's anything coming through, I'm afraid there, Marcel. But yeah, if anyone does have any questions outside of this, feel free to reach out to myself or Marcel. I'll share the recording from this as well, so you can look back at that. I'll also share Marcel's LinkedIn details, so that obviously you can reach out to him with any questions at all. But no, thank you again, Marcel. Thanks everybody that's been online tonight, and we'll catch up soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia, for the comment. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and hope